Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into Anthropic's brand new framework for shifting AI. We're talking about moving it from a simple tool that you have to operate manually to an autonomous process that essentially just runs itself. We're going to break down what the Claude Code team calls the delegation ladder, so we can figure out exactly how this shift works and, more importantly, how you can actually apply it.
So, if you ask 10 different engineers what a loop is, you're probably going to get 10 totally different answers, right? But the core idea here is fundamentally changing our day-to-day relationship with artificial intelligence. Let's dive into this buzz phrase of the moment in AI engineering and see how we can finally move past basic prompt engineering.
Think of it like this. We are transitioning away from micromanaging every single interaction. We're stepping into a supervisor role over an autonomous workflow, which frankly relieves you of all the heavy lifting. We're moving away from AI as a mere tool you operate turn by turn. Instead, we're looking at a world where AI is a process that just quietly runs in the background.
According to the Claude Code team over at Anthropic, this definition totally strips away all the confusing jargon. It focuses entirely on the actual mechanics, an agent repeating cycles of work until it hits a strictly defined stop condition. That's literally it, just a process spinning in a circle until specific criteria tell it to halt. The real magic isn't in the mechanics themselves, but in the framework this reveals when you categorize loops based on exactly what you are handing over to the machine.
Now, what's super fascinating about this slide is how it frames each rung of the delegation ladder around the specific human bottleneck that you get to stop doing yourself. You just climb one step at a time. First, you hand off the checking. Then you hand off the deciding when to stop. After that, you hand off the starting. And finally, you just hand off the asking altogether.
All right, let's start at the very bottom with rung 1, turn-based loops, which is all about handing off the check. So, in a standard turn-based loop, which, let's be real, you probably use every single day without even naming it, you send a prompt, the agent gathers context, takes an action, and hands something back. But you're still driving every turn. You were the one visually inspecting the output before writing the next prompt. The absolutely crucial upgrade here isn't just prompting harder, it's encoding your verification steps directly into a skill. Think requiring a clean browser console or a performance trace. You do this so the machine enforces your quality bar instead of you. Anthropic points to a front-end skill that straight up refuses to call a UI change done until the agent starts the dev server, clicks the new control, takes before and after screenshots, and runs a trace. Basically, the more quantitative the check, the better the agent can self-verify.
Climbing a bit higher, we reach rung 2, goal-based loops. This is where we hand off the stop condition.
Sometimes just one turn isn't enough, and agents genuinely do perform better when they're allowed to iterate. But if an agent decides on its own when a task is good enough, it might stop way too early. Leaving it entirely up to the agent's judgment is a massive trap. To fix this, you have to hand off that stop condition by declaring deterministic success criteria right up front, like, say, telling it to get the homepage performance score above 90. Because the criteria are totally deterministic, like a passing test suite, there's zero wiggle room for the agent to talk itself into finishing early. You'll also want to use a separate evaluator model to check those conditions objectively. And finally, you implement a turn cap. Think of it as a vital circuit breaker for your budget. You just tell it to stop after 5 tries, no matter what. It works until the goal is met or it hits that strict wall.
Okay, moving right along to rung 3, time-based loops. Handing off the trigger.
Think about tasks that stay exactly the same, like checking a pull request that keeps failing its tests or summarizing team messages every morning, but they rely on external systems or a schedule. This is where you hand off the trigger so a clock starts the work instead of you having to push a button. This right here is the first level where real leverage actually happens, because work gets completed while you are literally asleep. If you run it locally, a loop stops the second you close your laptop. Promote it to a scheduled routine, and it moves to the cloud. The business impact here is huge. The work starts itself with absolutely no intervention from you.
And finally, we reach the absolute top of the ladder, rung 4, proactive loops, handing off the prompt.
Up here on the top rung, we remove the absolute last piece of human intervention, which is the prompt itself. This kind of loop is triggered by an event or a schedule with 0 humans involved in real time. You rely on scheduled routines for triggers, strict goals for the stop conditions, auto mode so there's no real-time pausing to ask for permission, and dynamic workflows to orchestrate multiple agents all at once. Imagine a feedback pipeline that checks a Slack channel for bug reports on a schedule, uses a goal to make sure every report is triaged and fixed,
and explores solutions in parallel while a totally separate agent adversarially reviews them. At this point, it's not just a tool you operate anymore, it's a massive, autonomous process you supervise.
But hey, before we get a little too excited about full autonomy, Anthropic drops a pretty big caution. Overlooping is honestly just an expensive way to do simple work. Start simple. Only climb that ladder when the task truly earns it. It is incredibly easy to lose your restraint when you're excited about building agents, but that restraint is exactly what separates great engineering from a completely runaway budget.
Which brings us to some crucial guardrails, because the system matters way more than the loop itself.
The higher you climb, the more dangerous a poorly designed loop becomes. A loop is honestly only as good as the system surrounding it. That's the difference between a genuinely helpful agent and one that just quietly makes a huge mess at scale. To keep quality high, you deliberately need to do a few things. Keep your code base extremely clean for the agent to imitate. Make sure documentation is super easy to reach. Always use a second agent with totally fresh context for adversarial review. And actually, this is the most important one. Encode every single fix into a skills library so your loop gets smarter every time it runs. If you don't encode those fixes, your loop will simply repeat its same mistakes at a massive scale. Treating your skills library as an appreciating asset is the highest leverage habit you can possibly build here.
Next up on guardrails, keeping the bill sane. Remember, autonomy is heavily metered. Quality isn't your only concern. Autonomy runs the meter. The uncomfortable truth is, climbing that ladder runs the meter a lot faster, especially because a dynamic workflow can spawn hundreds of agents in no time flat. So, cost discipline? It's not optional bookkeeping. You absolutely must pilot small slices before executing a huge run. Pick the absolute cheapest capable model you can find for those repetitive steps, and heavily prefer deterministic scripts over expensive AI reasoning. Running a save script is just vastly cheaper than forcing a heavy model to rederive code from scratch every single time. Oh, and remember, do not pull a system more often than the work actually changes. When you strip away all the fancy jargon, the real skill in this whole framework isn't just operating a loop. It's the judgment call, knowing exactly what to delegate and how far to push it. By handing off one piece at a time and iterating, you graduate from typing out instructions all day to actually designing robust systems that run entirely on their own, without running away from you. Pick one task, hand off one piece, watch where it stalls, iterate. Seriously, that is the entire game.
So as you look at your own workflows, I'm going to leave you with this one vital question. It'll help you figure out exactly which rung of the delegation ladder you need to reach for first. Here it is. Where are you the bottleneck, and which single piece of that can you hand off today? Think about that, take a hard look at your processes, and start climbing.